Hey, before we get into today's episode, if you're a podcast host or guest, listen up. I've produced over 200 podcast episodes and guested on 50 podcasts just in 2025 alone. And let me tell you, nothing grows your audience or builds trust faster than being in front of the right listeners. That's why I created my podcast tour offer. I'll help you map out your topics, strategize your message, and find you the most aligned podcasts and audiences to get you and your business in front of. So if you've ever thought, I just wish more eyes were on my work, this is your sign. Let's get you on a podcast tour. You can find all the details in the show notes. Just look for podcast tour. Now let's dive into today's episode. Hey, today's guest is here to help you stop managing chaos and start running your business with clarity. Welcome, Lindsey Paulson, to the show. She is an operations consultant and the host of the Mess to Mission podcast, which I was lucky enough last year to be a guest on. It was lovely. And Lindsey helps small business owners turn everyday mess into clear, repeatable systems. And so if you're feeling like your business is messy, the behind the scenes for you is messy, this episode is for you, and you should grab a pen and paper and really tune in. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. We're like freezing behind the scenes, people. It's an ice storm. We're cold. We're just thriving and surviving.
For the listeners that are meeting you for the first time, how would you describe what you do now and who you help?
Oh my gosh. I tell people all the time, you can pivot in your business. This pivots. And what I actually do is I like to dive into the back-end systems and operations for small business owners. I don't really do large corporations or people who have a big team. This is for mainly the solopreneur or maybe even the partnership that they're looking to grow and scale and take that next step, but they don't really know how to streamline or how to even delegate appropriately or set up team communication. It's a lot of group chats. It's a lot of Google spreadsheets, and people are spreadsheets people, so don't come for me. But I love to be able to get into a back-end system such as a project management system or help them set up a CRM to kind of get them that little bit of automation start to finish. And I am super excited right now because I'm a consultant for our local SBA and a mountain association. So I really get to dive into even smaller businesses in like the Appalachian area of Kentucky and really guide them on that journey of what they need or what they could have access to moving down the pipeline.
That's awesome. Getting that cleaned up and getting those things working smoothly makes solopreneurship so much easier. And like, you don't want to burn it all down every other day.
Yes, which is very normal to be like, I'm taking over the world. I love it. And then, oh my gosh, I'm going to burn it all down.
Yeah. It's like learning new things. And sometimes we don't even know what options we have. We don't even know what programs are out there that could solve the problem we have. And I know that you have a ton of years in this, even at the higher level, at the corporate level. Can you tell us then sort of how you got to this point? Because I know that you were in corporate. Give me the scope of like, how was this business born?
I worked for Marriott International for what feels like half of my life. So I was actually blessed to be in the operations department from the beginning. I've always liked systems. I like to have things in a nice, neat, orderly process. So I learned basically from the ground up. I got my first job with Marriott and I was actually working in the Starbucks in the hotel. Then we decided to start a family. So I start working the Starbucks. The smell of coffee like sends me into orbit. So they have to find a new location for me because I'm like morning sickness over the one place I'm supposed to be for my job. So they moved me to the front desk. From there, it absolutely took off. I loved it. I was able to get into management, leadership. And then when I left that role, I was able to go start help opening new hotels. And I loved that job. I loved all of the corporate situations. It's just a little bit harder for travel whenever you're starting a family and kids are happening and things are happening. And my husband actually works for the fire department. So he has a weird shift of like 24 on, 48 off. So I can't be gone and him be gone at the same time. So I stepped back and actually became the COO operations manager for a construction company that was owned by a fireman as well in his off days. We started as like a 3-person small team. And then when I left to start my own operations consulting, we were at 21 people. I call that like my case study. I was like, I want to grow. I want to put systems in here. I want to hire you a team. I want to be able to grow and scale this. And that was so fun. And I absolutely adored it. And I thought, I want to do this for other people. I love construction, but it was not what brought me joy. Learning about framing packages did not bring me joy. It was really the systems and back end. And what I said was, so it was a blessing and a curse as I got all of these things aligned. And then it was kind of like, okay, but now what? I was running out of things to really really get deep into researching because our CRM was taking care of everything. Our systems were taking care of everything. And that was kind of at the point that I was like, I don't love building houses. I love building systems and processes. He was super understanding. I was able to start doing things on the side and then really took off full time end of last year.
What are common signs that someone's business has outgrown their current system?
I think it kind of depends on, like we had talked about, what they're pivoting and what they're searching for. So the system that they had, that they were utilizing to begin with for the construction company, it was working, but they were having a lot of client miscommunication. They were having a lot of back and forth emails. There was a lot of invoicing that wasn't getting done. He wouldn't mind if I shared this, but like when I first got in there, I was really going through the finances, trying to figure out in their system what in the French toast was happening. And he had like $300,000 him that had never been documented because the process was on a sticky note that went to so-and-so's desk, that went to so-and-so's desk. The contract was never reviewed, so the homeowner never got billed, so they just didn't pay. So there was a lot of things that I was like, red flag, this is not working. What we're doing is not working. So we were able to implement a system called Builder Trend. It is like the Mac Daddy for construction, but the clients had to go in and sign off, and then it sent an automation to send the bill. They had to pay. It had auto reminders. So taking that mental load off of the team and the in-house team so they could focus on the build, that was when we knew that it was time to bring in a new system, because the one that they had originally implemented, it was great for managing one houses or two houses, but now they were doing 10, 12, 15 homes. And that's a lot of communication because you really don't want to screw up somebody's framing package or their paint colors or their floor colors. So just when you know that the mental load is more than you can bear, that's the biggest trigger for me, that system might not be doing what you need it to be doing.
Sounds like when you dive in, it's like finding the problems or finding the gaps, where are mistakes happening, where are those miscommunications happening, and then building in from there. I know that you've worked with big brands and now we're more in the small business. Where do you see entrepreneurs, solopreneurs creating that unnecessary chaos for themselves?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. These are like my big hot takes. So one is getting shiny object syndrome. Everything that comes out is not going to be the newest, greatest thing that skyrockets you into becoming a millionaire or figuring out like the newest and greatest. So one thing that I often see is that people just buy free trials to every tool, but a lot of these tools overlap. But then they'll put half of their system in this tool and half of their system in this tool, but they have 7 systems that can handle everything. But because it's so overstimulating to learn the automation piece in Dubsado or the automation piece in Honeybook, they just kind of piecemeal things together. So that's something that I see commonly that happens a lot. And then the second thing that I see most frequently is people not taking the time to visit free resources. So like specifically for Kentucky, we have an SBA here that is amazing. So that's our Small Business Administration. They will go in, they will pay for softwares for you. They will help set them up for you. They will teach you educationally that piece. And that's all built into free structure. And I'm like not trying to talk myself out of a job here, but if you don't have the funds to spend on an operations consultant, or you don't have the money to pay a freelancer to spend 5 weeks in your Dubsado building a workflow, have you looked into free resources for small business owners that may be able to set you up for success? I know like the Mountain Association here, they will pay for your QuickBooks. They will pay for you to have a website. So they really want to support small business owners. And I always tell people that's like my best kept secret for especially this area, because those people want to see you succeed. So what tools that can you lean on to help you kind of move before you spend $5,000 on the newest, shiniest, greatest thing that you have found that Instagram targeted on, and then now you're like having to sell your kidney to afford, but your software is $1,000 a year.
That's great to even just bring up and just be aware that each state might have something like that. That's awesome. I love automation, but I know that that's not everybody's favorite thing. And a lot of times people think it's boring or restrictive. So how do you help your clients see that system as freedom instead of that negative, like, I just want to keep avoiding that?
Yes. I have spent like an obnoxious amount of time kind of researching people's educational, like what they want, what they need, if they're visual learners, audio learners. And I think it's really about meeting people where they are. So why I love ClickUp and I love that digital automation piece for my client that I I met with last week, we actually built her a custom paper planner and mapped out the workflows of like, in January, you're going to need to do all of this because in February, here's what we're going to work on next. And it has her reminders built in because she does not want to touch anything digital. She wants everything to be on a paper pencil. She wants to carry this book around. That's great. That is her system. And we've almost made it so detailed just to take that mental load off of her. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can kind of dig in, and you don't really have to build this full automation. I will say if you're newer to like the technology space, I don't recommend jumping into like Zapier or Zapier and being like, hey, let's try to custom code X, Y, and Z, because most of the time you just get really overstimulated and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to shut that down and try again later. But for ClickUp specifically, which is like the project management tool that I use, they have a free AI agent that you can say, build me an automation that does X, Y, and Z, and it'll do it for free. So there's a lot of ways that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but also if you don't like doing things in a PM system digitally, then don't. Do what works best for your system, because my one size fits all is not going to be your one size fits all, and what you do in your business may not work for my business. I have an interior design client and her systems are very intricate because she has so many lighting packages, so many things that she has to know. I would never need a procurement process. So build out what works for you, whether it be paper or pencil, or add in that technology piece kind of whenever you're ready.
I like the permission there. We don't all have the same business. Our brains don't work the same way. And so there has to be a little bit of that personalization there too. Love it. So if someone's feeling buried in tasks right now, you know, a solopreneur, let's think like a service-based online entrepreneur type of person is listening to this show. What's the first system that you would have them fix?
So I have a couple different ways to answer this. So, because it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, it's probably case by case. Very, yes.
If you've been in business a couple years, I always say if you don't have something for bookkeeping, the IRS does not love that. The IRS does not love playing guess the amount. You really need to get in your numbers and have something that separates personal from business, a bookkeeping system, because you're not going to be able to grow and scale unless you actually open your bookkeeping system and know where your numbers are. If you're first starting out, the biggest system that I try to even start with is just how are you going to manage your time? You're not in a 9-to-5 anymore. You're not going to have your boss breathing down your neck. So you have to make sure that you don't nap for 3 hours, which is like so a thing that I want to do, by the way. I know I need to work from this time to this time, but if I lay down or something else intrigues me, I'm like, oh, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. And you can tend to push yourself down the road with projects, with building an email list, with doing all of these things, because overstimulation is a total thing, especially as a mom. So I say your first system is going to be figuring out how you're going to time block your actual business and focus on the categories that you're going to work on. You can't just jump in and spend 17 hours on a logo. That's not revenue generating for you. I've never looked at a logo and been like, dang, that's a great logo. I'm going to go just with that person because they spent 26 hours on designing that logo. Like, don't get caught up in those things. There was actually a time in my business where I was like, dang, I really need more income. And then I go to my website and I was like looking at something for SEO and I'm like, I'm not selling anything. I'm not promoting anything to sell to the people. I'm asking them to book a call with me, but I'm not telling them about my offerings. So how am I going to make money if I don't offer anything to sell to the people? So don't get caught up on those little details, but spend time blocking out all of your tasks and kind of how you're going to move the needle. That way you can actually bring in money, because you have to pay your groceries and your bills and your mortgage, but like you have to sell things as well.
Absolutely. This might go hand in hand with this question, but thinking a little bit more along the lines of being able to work in your specific zone of genius, spending time in that space. What's something or a small change that you could make this week to be able to spend more time working in that zone of genius?
Having a way to track actual leads and some sort of lead onboarding or workflow automation. So especially when you first start a business, you get your hot leads, and that's going to be your brother, cousin, uncle, sister, all the people who know you that are like, hey, what are you doing? Can you help me? That eventually fizzles out. I hate to say that to people, but it does. It actually kind of fizzles out because they're going to want to bargain with you. They might ask you for something for free. We all get it. We've all been there. But what you don't anticipate is if somebody comes to you and says, hey, Candace, I really want to work with you. And you're like, oh, great. Like my first client. Okay, but what's next? Do you have a contract in place? Do you have a way for them to pay you? Do you have a way for them to see what your offerings are? That doesn't mean you need a $7,000 website with your face plastered all over it and a blog and a podcast and a book and everything else. But do you have a way to provide a service? Do you have a way to take money? That is the simplistic way of doing it. You can do all those things in Google Workspace. They can sign a contract, they can e-doc, you can email back and forth, but do you have a way, simplistic way to onboard your first client or sell a product? Are you selling on Etsy? Are you selling on Shopify? Are you selling out of your basement? Like, how are they going to pay you in a responsible fiduciary way that you can move the needle?
Yeah, just thinking of exactly getting past the I'm so excited, let's sign a client to what is going to happen. What are those logistics? Because if you don't have those figured out, then it becomes really hard to sign more clients and to expand, because signing one client without anything in place could turn into being a very time consuming just for one person.
Mm-hmm. Yes. This is like a short story, but like we had a guy who he bought a food truck and he was like, I'm going to buy this food truck. I'm going to do the food truck business, yada, yada, yada. Didn't get a business license, didn't get the fire marshal to sign off, had never worked in a restaurant. So when it came time to curate the menu, he didn't know where to start because that wasn't his zone of genius. So things that are appearing as quick financial gain probably take a lot more work behind the scenes than people realize. And so now he's got this big food truck, but he can't afford for the permitting and the da-da-da-da-da. He doesn't have any knowledge on how to run it, and he doesn't have a menu, and he doesn't know how to cook the things that he would put on the menu. So really taking that time to do the research of what it's going to take systems and sustainability wise on the back end so that your city doesn't come down and say, hey, this is all maybe not legal, or this person comes and says, hey, you need a fire marshal permit or you need health department. Taking time to get into that research phase can save you a lot of headache as well.
That's a good point. This kind of leads me into you telling us about your automation academy. So automations are great. They save us so much time as solopreneurs. And I know you have a monthly compilation of automations. Easy place, yes, for someone to start. Can you tell us about that and what that could do for a solopreneur?
Automation Academy is something that I just decided to do on a whim because a lot of solopreneurs don't have $3,500 dump into setting up automations for their system. This is basically a resource hub with monthly reports that also goes out, but it kind of ties into this resource hub, and it's going to show you in categories things that can help with your business. So like the very first month I did it, I was thick in the woods of clients who were in email overstimulation. They didn't know anything about email routing rules. They didn't know things about Boomerang. Boomerang's like my favorite tool of all time because it helps you remember who in your email inbox needs to be followed up with, and it's free. So there's so many little free tips and tricks in there that entrepreneurs can implement. This one friend, and if she hears this, she'll know it's about her. She had like 10,000 unread emails. Like I'm pretty sure she had opted into everything she had ever seen in her entire life. Well, she's like, I'm so stimulated, I'm losing client interaction in my emails. So we just even went into her managed subscriptions and started unsubscribing. So Automation Academy goes through different social media marketing, email management, different categories each month. And we really break down free tools, tips, and tricks that you can use to help streamline a process or eliminate that overstimulation or have technology do the work that maybe you're like dreading to do. I built that academy based on a low price point because I don't think that you should have to pay for things you just don't know. If I'm going to custom build a DIY for your specific business, great. That comes with a price point. But if you just are like to a point where you don't even know where to begin and you're so overstimulated and you don't know these tools exist and the tools are free, that it speaks a different language for just getting some of those things ironed out behind the scenes.
Absolutely. That's so true. And I actually think I saw it on your stories about being able to unsubscribe from subscriptions in one spot on Gmail on a desktop. And yes. I had no idea. And so I immediately went there. I love a clean inbox. It has to be blank for me. It's like things that you just don't know. You don't come across. So you don't know what you don't know.
So I would encourage anybody who's feeling super overstimulated that just really don't know where to even start with your free resources before you invest in lots of debt to kind of see what your local area offers, kind of see what tools, especially if you're a Gmail user. Google Workspace has so many free hidden tools that you just don't know about. Get in their marketplace and download a tool that might be applicable to you or can sync with your Trello or something. It's all free. So just really take that time to do that homework on the front end so you're not so stressed out on the back end.
Absolutely. Where can someone find you after this show if they want to connect?
At lindspaulson.com. So Paulson is how you spell my last name. I'm Linds.Paulson on Instagram. And then I do have the Mess to Mission podcast, which go download Candace's episode. She's fantastic. I love podcasting. That's on Spotify and Apple. So you can go in there, hear some Mess to Mission stories. We are starting, I say we, like me and the mouse in my pocket are starting a series. It's called the 10 Things series. So it's going to come out and be like 10 things I wish I would have known about email management, 10 things I wish I would have known about social media, 10 things I wish I would have known about this. So that's coming down the pipeline end of March. So that'll be a fun series.
I love it. I will link everything in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on and sharing your knowledge with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Hey, before you go, if you've ever wished podcast guesting or hosting felt a little easier, you're going to love this. I started a free podcast matchmaking community where hosts and guests can actually connect, swap shows, and find aligned conversations without all the cold pitching and chaos. It's totally free, it's super fun, and it's growing every day. So whether you're looking to grow your audience, get in front of the right people, or just finally get your message out there, come join us. You can find the link in the show notes to join the community.